Hello, in this video, I will show you how you can use a polynomial model of order 2 to forecast new 12 values for the Amtrak ridership data. So, if you look at some of the videos we have done, you will find that the polynomial of order 2 is the best model, with seasonality obviously, is the best model to forecast new values for the Amtrak ridership. So in that exercise, we partitioned our data set after creating the seasonality dummies. And then when we ran the models, a linear model, a linear trend with seasonality, a polynomial trend with seasonality, and an exponential trend plus seasonality on that partitioned data, we found that the polynomial of order 2 has the lowest error in the validation period. So after that, the exercise is how to forecast new 12 values after we know that information. So I'm kind of starting from scratch in this particular data. So in that way, you have this data set already, the month, the ridership. I've created a time index t for the Amtrak data. I will also create a t-square because we need the t and t-square to capture my polynomial trend of order 2. Okay, so I'll double click on this, and then I'm going to create the 12 dummies to capture the seasonality in our data set. So to do that, what I will do is I'll create a column, and I'll say name it as month. I can give whatever name I want. I will put month dummy. Okay, and then what I will do is I am going to put January, February, March. You can also give, you can actually use 1, 2, 3, 4 also. And that will also work. April, May, and the whole idea here is I am trying to obviously create dummies automatically. The other approach would have been to kind of manually do it, and that may not be feasible for a very large data set. Okay, and so typically if you double select and then double click, typically it should work, but I would always recommend that you check. See, there is a problem. As you can see, I just selected and double clicked, and then January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, and then October, November, December is not captured properly. Okay, that's one thing to think about. So I think we are missing also January, February, March, April, May. So I'm missing May here. That's the reason it happened. Okay, so just make sure. I mean, and the reason is, July, August. Typically I get emails that the models are not running properly and so on and so forth. And typically that's because that the dummies, when you created these terms, names, they were not done properly. Okay. So what I will do is I'll just copy paste those values instead of double clicking on the right hand side. In that way, I know they're done properly. Okay, so once again, what I'm doing is I just copy pasted. Now there are other ways you can do. You can use the month function in Excel to get the month of that particular date, or you can do other parsing, text parsing approach to kind of come up with this January, February, March, April from the column A. But it's up to you. Okay, it's up to you. I'm trying to give you something that is kind of very straightforward and something you can do it at your end without knowing a lot about functions and formulas in Excel. So after you're done with this, just delete the extra additional rows. Otherwise, you will get errors. Okay, so please delete these rows. And so and by the way, this is I'm using Office 365. You can get an account directly from our of the university accounts because you have access to it. Or if you use a 365 and I'm running the XLMiner on the 365. This is not an installed XLMiner. Okay, so after we're done with this, I'm going to go to data mining, and then I will go to transform. and I will click create dummies. After I do that, create dummies, I am going to then select this new column, and it says that there is a first row issue here. Looks like there is something going on with the first row containing the same name, and that's because if you go here you see T and T, right? So make sure that you name them properly. Okay, so if you, whenever you see an error that came out and all the variable names are same, and you may be getting that kind of errors, that's typically because the names are not correctly at the same time. So now, as you can see, after I change the t to t square, we have everything taken care of. The names came. I will select the month dummy to right hand side, and then I will click OK. When this is done, you will see a new spreadsheet called encoding. Okay, and typically encoding, you get all the variables. Now this is the dummy variables. Please make a note that this is not January, February, but this is done alphabetically. So April comes first, then August, December, February, January. Also, before you do any analysis, try to just make sure that you have all the dummies correctly done. Okay, sometimes I have seen that there may be, due to some error in that this particular column, you may have two Jans or two Febs. And so please make sure before you do any kind of analysis that your encoding file is correct already. Okay. So in the past, what we have done is we partitioned our data from here. But given that we are now focusing on forecasting new 12 values, we don't want to kind of do that. Okay, so we want to kind of just focus on things like that. We want to focus on just to forecast the new 12 values. So we don't have to partition. So the next thing will be for us is to create a new spreadsheet with the new future values, information that the program will use to forecast the new 12 values. Okay, so the first step towards that is, so once again, I'm going to create this spreadsheet before running any analysis. Okay, so I will put in this new spreadsheet and rename it as new value. You can rename in whatever way you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we'll just do that. And so I will select the record IDs and record. What I will do is, first thing I will do is select the names of the variables. Okay, so the names of the variables from the encoding sheet and paste it in this particular new spreadsheet. So that's the step one. Okay, so step one is create a new spreadsheet and then copy paste the names of the variables from the encoding spreadsheet onto this spreadsheet. The next thing will be is to kind of extend this data set into new 12 values. Okay, we're going to extend this data set into new 12 values. Now, we have record 159, so I'm going to extend some of the things. I can just select this and then extend by new 12 values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we are looking at 183. So we're going to go to 195. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, good. So what we're doing is, given that we want to forecast new 12 values, I'm extending this data set, okay, by 12 values. After that, this column ridership is what we want to forecast. Obviously, we don't know the future values. That's what we are forecasting. So I will leave this column blank. T, obviously, we can figure out the new 12 values because it's just a T. T square, okay, and then T square, you can obviously calculate this from this T, okay. So what I will do is I will do equals T and then hat 2 to give us a square. Now, sometimes, and I'll show you in a few minutes, when we transfer these values into this new spreadsheet, these formulas may not copy. Okay. So anyway, just keep that in mind. But since we know these values, I'm going to keep it like this. And then I will go up 12 values: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then copy all these 12 dummies. So go up 12 rows, copy these 12 dummies and paste it down here. Okay, and the idea here is we are just extending our file by 12 values, because this is what we want to forecast in this particular case, and we are entering the information we can for this particular new 12 values. So obviously we know the month, obviously the time component, it's not in our model, it should not matter. The ridership is what we need to kind of forecast. We don't know that, the future value, so I'll keep it blank. T squared and the dummies, obviously we can handle them, right? Because we know those values. So the next step will be to kind of cut paste, okay, not copy paste, but cut paste this part, these new 12 values, and then paste it in this new value spreadsheet. Okay. So once again, what I did was I first created this new spreadsheet, copy pasted the names of the variables from the encoding spreadsheet, and then I extended the encoding spreadsheet by 12 new values, because that's what we want to do in this case. And include the values that we can. So in this case, we know the value of t, we know the value of t squared, we know the value of the dummies. One thing we do not know, obviously, is the ridership. Okay, we don't know this. Record ID, it's not in our model, so that's why I did not copy them, and so that's why it left like this. Just before we do any analysis, just make sure that you delete these extra rows. Okay, otherwise you will get errors. Okay, so I would highly recommend that you select them and you delete those extra rows. Okay, and then click on a cell that has a value, okay, in the encoding spreadsheet before you run the analysis. Okay, because without that you will get errors when you are going to run the model to forecast the new 12 values. Okay, so new value. Now before we run the analysis, in this particular spreadsheet, delete the columns which has missing values. Now obviously the only thing missing values we have is the ridership column. Now record ID, it's not in our model, so I'll also delete this particular column. In our model, month is also not a part of it. Okay, so you can remove the ones that are not in your final model. So what is the model we are talking about here? We're talking about the polynomial of order 2 as the best model to forecast the new 12 values of ridership. And so a polynomial of order 2 is you have t squared and 11 of the 12 month dummies to capture seasonality. We're going to drop April because that's what we did last time to compare the models. But typically when you drop a dummy, it depends to capture seasonality. A lot of it depends on the strategic aspect of the forecasting exercise. So if it's none, if the client doesn't give you what to drop, you can decide on that. So typically in the past, I will drop, let's say, the month that has no seasonal effect, or I will drop the month that has the lowest sales in that particular year, or I will drop the month that has the highest sales in the particular year. In that way, when you are looking into the explanation of the coefficients for these dummies, or to figure out what decisions to make, you compare those values of those seasons with your benchmark or the baseline, which is the month that you dropped. In this case, we are dropping April, so therefore obviously all the values we're going to get here will be related to April. Okay, the April. Anyway, so now we are ready to go. What I will do is, since we know the best model and we are just now trying to forecast new 12 values, we don't need to partition anymore, right? I mean, the partitioning is only necessary when we are trying to find the best model. In this exercise, we already know the best model, which is your polynomial of order 2, let's say. So I will just now go to predict, go to linear regression, and then select the full data set. Okay, the full data set is the encoding file, because it has the dummies, it has a t and t squared, and it's not partitioned. Okay, so the output is the time series you are forecasting, which is the ridership, and then selected variables, we have t squared, and then we're going to have 11 of the 12 dummies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop April from this exercise, and then I will select August. I will hold my shift button in my computer and click September. In that way, I can select all those 11 dummies together and go to selected variable. Okay, so I drop April and then t and t squared, and then I have all the 11 dummies. Go next. I will click on ANOVA on the left hand side, then analysis of coefficients, analysis of residuals on the right hand side. Now we may not need these analysis because we know the best model, but as exercise, if you when you need to report your future values, you want to maybe add some of this information when writing the report for your client. Then click next, and then click on detailed reports on the training score. Now see, the validation scores or data is all grayed out. And the reason is it's grayed out is because there is no partition. So everything, all the full data set is all training. Okay, so that's why the validation score is grayed out. So now as we are trying to forecast new values, and we have created this new value spreadsheet, I'm going to click now score new data in worksheet, and I will click on this particular in worksheet tab. When I click that, a new tab comes up, okay, a new window comes up. Now in this window, what you will do is make sure that you select this new value spreadsheet. So what you're telling the program is, XLMiner is, you want to forecast new values by taking the independent variable values from this particular spreadsheet, okay? Now, when we created this spreadsheet, I copy pasted the encoding variable names from the encoding spreadsheet and pasted here. And the reason I did that is I will tell the program is by clicking match by name that whatever variables we had, okay, whatever variables we had in this particular spreadsheet, new value has the same meaning as the variables in the encoding value. Okay, that's the whole idea. And we can do it by match by name. So when I click match by name, what is telling XLMiner is the T in this new value spreadsheet has the same meaning as T in the encoding. So when I click that, you will see a bunch of errors, okay? And typically, remember this, whenever you see any kind of errors like these, typically this is due to the data range. Very, very important, okay? So if you look at this data set is from A to N and to 13, okay? So what I would suggest is look at the data range. So this is from A1, and change this data range, okay, A1 to N13, right? So that is what it is, N and 13 is the row. So I'll click on A1, change the S to N, and then I will click make it 13, okay? And if you click outside and then you do match my name, it will match all of them. You see that? So what I did was, so remember this. So when you click on match by name or any other a window, if you see an error like undefined and so, always first look for two things. Whether are you looking for the right worksheet, and second is the data range. Please make sure that you look at the data range, because if the data range is incorrect, you will get those errors. So in this case, as you can see, and it has matched everything t to t square, and all the dummies except April, because April was not in our main model. We dropped the April from our polynomial model when we are forecasting. So even though it's present in this particular spreadsheet, the new value spreadsheet, it is not even matched. Okay. And this matching means that the t in this new value has the same meaning as the t in the encoding spreadsheet. That's exactly what it means. Okay. And then you click finish. Okay, and you're done almost, and then you click finish once again, and then you see that the new values, you'll see a new spreadsheet called linreg new score, and this new values you see, these 12 values are the new 12 values beyond your data set. Okay, so now, I mean, when you're doing this for your client, then obviously you want to report the new 12 values. So okay, so what I will do is I will select these 12 new values and create a plot. I'll copy this, and then I will go to the main spreadsheet. Okay, and then I will name this here forecast, and then I'm going to scroll down and then paste those 12 new values at the end. Now, you do not need to do this for your assignments or quizzes, but typically this is, you need to do this if you are obviously dealing with your client and you need to report the final results, right? So that's the whole idea. And then what I will do is I'll extend this 12 values, the date, okay? And so you see that, you know, March, April, May, June, July, August, I has extended this file. And so now the final thing will be to kind of plot this and put in your report. So I will select the columns. Okay, so I need to kind of if cut this and put it here beside each other, so then I can have all the three columns together. Okay, so I'll select these three columns and then go to insert and then click line. Okay, so once again, what we are doing here is just to plot this. You do not need this step for your assignment or quizzes. This is mostly to kind of plot this your raw data with the new 12 values if you're going to write a report and submit it to your company or client. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to contact, and I'll be happy to help with this. Thank you.